Hi, this is Christine Chandler Prater with The Holy Shift, and today we're talking about the ministry of laughter. That's right. I believe that humor is holy too, and we're going to be diving into why the Bible tells us that's true. And I've invited a very special guest to join us today, Miss Jen Harp. Jen is from the Bay Area of California. She is the founder and CEO of Big Girl on a Mission, which we're going to talk all about. She is also a self-described recovering Bible-thumping legalist, which we're really going to talk all about. And she is hysterically funny. And I have asked Jen to join us because I believe that she is doing great kingdom work, meaning she is glorifying God and loving others well, both through her business and through her sense of humor. So, hi, Jen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for having me.
Jen, I want to talk a lot about a lot of things while we're here, but I first want to start with your business, Big Girl on a Mission. And I want to maybe start with a confession. I did not originally know what you did when we became Insta buddies. I basically followed you and interacted with you because you're funny. And only recently did I find out all about this amazing business. So Big Girl on a Mission, from what I understand, helps the helpers. And so basically you kind of help nonprofits and ministries and organizations and businesses with their marketing and fundraising and strategy and basically everything I needed when I was starting this ministry and wish to goodness I had known you. And I'm sure we're going to be working together in the future. But tell me a little bit more about Big Girl on a Mission, please.
So Big Girl on a Mission started out as a social media channel that I opened up when I was director of marketing for a nonprofit. I'd worked there about 16 years. We were launching a new event, and it was called 24 in Your Car. And so we were asking people to live in their cars for a period of 24 hours. So I got the bright idea to kind of do the pre-launch of that by living in my sister's Honda Odyssey van for a week. So I thought it was going to kind of be like urban camping. I thought there may be some s'mores involved. And there literally was not. It was, I had never, the organization that I'd worked with was a battered and homeless women and children shelter. And so a lot of the women there had lived in their cars with their children and things like that. So this very like sobering fact. And so this event was kind of to give people a micro taste of what that was like, to kind of stir up some empathy in them and then drive them towards compassion, which is, this strong urge to alleviate another's suffering.
Right.
So I thought by doing this, living in my sister's van and then posting these videos on the internet, this would garner up some interest for the event. Well, it did. And most of the, and this was a while ago. I mean, so it was like I was recording not on my phone. I was recording on one of those little, or maybe it was, part of it was on my phone.
Okay.
I think the first year I did it on one of those little cameras that had the little USB flip thing
out.
Oh, yeah. But so I had actually done that 3 years in a row for a week at a time to kind of support this event. And all 3 years, the videos are just pretty much me crying because it was so hard to,
I bet.
watch.
I could only imagine. No s'mores?
There were no s'mores involved whatsoever. It was nothing like urban camping. One year I did it near the holidays. So then I was very emotional, like in parking lots, watching people do their Christmas shopping as you're alone in a van with your pepper spray.
So, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It was really, but that channel was called Big Girl on a Mission. So when I eventually left that job, I kind of didn't really know what I was going to do. And I was thinking marketing in the real world, marketing for another nonprofit. I didn't know. And
because your whole background is in marketing, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, it
Okay.
is. And so it was kind of like this loss of identity, loss of
Sure.
a job. And so I went through kind of, this time where I jammed 73 jars of jam. I tried to plant stuff and they died. I was trying to like find myself, and my husband was so patient. He's like, you'll figure it out. And well, I started meeting with people around the Bay Area who were starting small businesses or nonprofits. And so I would help them with their social media or just do consulting on an event. And slowly but surely, after a few months, with encouragement of my friends and my husband, I made myself legal and did an LLC. And that was 7 years ago. And
That's
so
awesome.
since then, that's what Big Girl on a Mission has been doing. I've always said, I counsel people not to make the names of their companies long, because so we've had to change a few clients' official names because they're just very, very long. And here
Right.
I am, Big Girl on a Mission, but I take none of my own advice. And it's worked for me. I have never done any advertising. So it's just been word of mouth. And we have clients across the nation, except for, like we talked about, the East Coast. I
Oh
don't know if
yeah.
you're on the East Coast yet. So I'd like a few there.
Okay. Well,
But
maybe this will hit somebody on the East Coast
yes,
that needs some
that
assistance.
needs some help with their marketing. But yeah, so that's in a nutshell kind of how Big Girl on a Mission got started. And I always said, the lawyer that was doing my LLC said, "Are you sure you want to call it Big Girl on a Mission?" And I was like, you know what? If they don't have a sense of humor, we're probably not going to work good together anyways. So let's
Perfect.
keep it Big
So
Girl on a Mission.
you two are drawn to people with a sense of humor, I suppose.
Yes. Yes, I am.
I do wish that we could all choose who we work with based on, first and foremost, kindness. Second of all, I would like them all to be funny and entertaining. It just does make the day go by faster if you are interacting with people who have a lot of joy, have a lot of kindness and are willing to not take themselves seriously. And one thing that I find, I don't know if this is your experience, but in the Jesus world, in the ministry world, sometimes I think we're afraid to joke around and have some fun. We want people to know that we take Jesus seriously. And so it seems like we have to take everything so seriously. So sometimes I'll get like feedback when I post a bunch of funny stuff. They're like, "I thought this was a ministry page." And I'm like, it is. Like, you're allowed to laugh and love Jesus. I don't know if you knew that. So do you ever get any like pushback when you're using your sense of humor in the Christian world? Or do you get more pushback from the non-Christian world because you're funny and you're a Christian? Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
I probably get more pushback from Christian.
Okay.
As far as like, I used to say that I spoke fluent sarcasm. And then there was a woman on Instagram who is an author, love her book. And she did this whole thing about sarcasm and how it's dreadful and sinful. And just, she kind of encapsulated what sarcasm was. And it was nothing what I was really thinking of sarcasm as.
Gotcha.
It's kind of this sharp thing that kind of puts somebody down.
Right.
So that was the opposite of what I was trying to do. So from the Christian world, it was when, that's kind of, I got a little bit of pushback on that. But as far as from non-Christians, finding out, like, it's obvious right on my profiles, love God, love others, make a difference. That's my gig.
Yeah.
And so people would, research, be like, who is this big girl that's making me laugh or whatever. And then to find out that, oh, she loves Jesus, like not just loves him on Sunday, but loves him every day.
Yeah.
And so I would get I've gotten many messages over the years that say, I've never known Christians could be funny. Yeah. And I thought, oh, and so my constant comeback to that is like, you don't know the right Christians. Like,
yeah,
there should be not everybody has to be funny.
Right.
But
because that's a gift. It's a gift. Wouldn't you say that humor is a gift, maybe like an art form? I think.
An art form.
I do. I really do think that humor is an art form. I honestly do.
I've never thought of it that way. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's just something that kind of my parents both have a sense of humor. Although my dad, now that he's gotten older, has that like dad sense of humor that is more painful than it is funny. But they're still funny people. And so I just kind of being raised around funny people. And so, yeah, I've just always taken it for granted that I love making people laugh. It's like heroin to me.
Yes, it is so good to bring joy. And, it is ministry. And when you and I were becoming, closer Insta buddies, you shared a story with me about how you actually got to use humor to minister to somebody. Could you share that story here, please?
About my friend?
Yes, about your friend. And yes, please.
So when part of what I do at Big Girl on a Mission is we do social media for clients. And so we're constantly learning how to use social media and, keeping up with these ever-changing algorithms and stuff like this. So when stories kind of first came out on Instagram, I knew nothing about them. And in fact, I didn't really know much about Instagram itself. And so I set out to figure out how to grow an Instagram account on behalf of my clients. So I used my own personal one, and I just kept hearing how stories was helping grow your Instagram account. And I literally have nothing to say. I like home decor. So a lot of my feed was home decor, usually with like some humorous tagline or something like that. But there's no discernible talent. And so I was like, I'm just going to get on there and just say things that come into my head or things that I got, bugged about or I thought were hilarious myself. And one of the first ones was they have this thing called Fat Bear Week in Alaska, where they choose the fattest bear in Alaska. And literally that made me laugh out loud. And
is that a hashtag I can follow? Because I'm going to.
I think, I'm pretty sure. And for the first couple of years, I literally followed who was the fattest bear in Alaska. And so I just
why we're friends.
I just started getting on Instagram stories and sharing about these random things that somebody would tell me or I would find out about. Well, at the time, a very good friend of mine, her son was diagnosed with leukemia, and they were spending a lot of time in the hospital while he was getting chemo treatments. And so she would say like, oh, I watched your stories today. They made us laugh. And so I started picturing her because she has a similar sense of humor to me. So when I was doing these stories, I was actually talking to my friend more. And so slowly but surely my account grew, and I started having women reach out to me telling me, DMing me about how they had woken up that morning and they didn't even want to get out of bed. They were kind of depressed, and they watched my story about some random idiotic thing that I was saying, and they laughed, and it made them, happy, and they got out of bed. But, and it was just such a sobering thing to me. It almost made me, it's like a little bit of pressure. Like when people say, oh, Jen's really funny. And then people like look at me like, perform.
Yeah. So were you nervous when I had you come on here? Like you
Yes.
needed to be my funny dancing bear or whatever, like make everyone laugh now.
Yes.
Not a nervous.
And here she is. Now so that's kind of how I started to do stories, and then it just started growing in such a way that I was like, wow, this is crazy. And this last year I have not been on stories a lot. And so in the Instagram world, people will unfollow you in a heartbeat. Facebook, people through to you, they forget who you are, they don't care, they don't unfollow you.
Yeah.
In Instagram, it's just like they'll unfollow you in a hot second. So, I've lost over 2,000 people. Sometimes it is after I talk about Jesus or I talk about something about the Lord, and then I'll notice, a dip in, but it's so funny because now it's like, okay, what I came out of that time of trying to grow my own Instagram was for my clients was like, really what it boils down to is delivering content to people and personality.
Yeah.
So whether that content is just a ridiculous, I don't know how to bake bread. I mean, so you're not going to get that kind of content, and I'm not going to take you through how to decorate your home because it's just so individual. Right. And I look at it as a talent. I just look at it as I collect things that I like and I put them up in a way that I like it. So how do you teach that? So there's things that people do well and they teach that, and that's amazing. But I had nothing to offer but just a random observations of life that people thought were funny. And so I love
it, Jen, because what you tend to do is you say out loud things that conversations that we're having in our head. Like you really asked a very poignant question when you were on vacation in Oregon. You were like, listen, have we ever decided, like, can you wear your hair down with a hoodie or not? And, like I've yet to see that go well for anybody. Is it not ministry to say that you can't have stuff here and stuff here, especially if you have stuff here? Like what I really want is to find a clip to get my neck back and anything that comes up. And you really tackled that. And that's all something that we have all worked through. And it ministered to me because I was like, no.
It is brave. I mean, I am brave. Sharing the controversy of hair up with a hoodie or and you
it's a polarizing issue, Jen.
The messy bun. Yes, exactly. Yes. And I even was brave enough to tackle the millennial Gen Z side part skinny jeans.
I saw that.
I mean,
I saw that.
I don't want to say I was on the cutting edge of that, but I kind of was. So
look, you and I are rebels. Because we're like, it's a side part. But here's what happens too when you get a little bit old. So those Gen Zs, what they don't have is the widening part yet. Mm-hmm. That's why they can have a center part. Maybe it's cute on them. I find it rarely good for anybody's face. What it is not good for is my face, an aging face. And for the widening part, if there's anybody else who has reached that chapter and season in life where the part is like, it became like the Red Sea. It's like God's miracle happening right here upon my scalp. And so, you've got to, my hairdresser is even like, what are we doing? Why does it keep moving sideways? And I'm like, cause I'm going to do a comb over pretty soon. We're almost to comb over. Do you have that problem? Let's tackle the tough issues on here. Do you have a widening part?
I have, I'm a Mexawegian, which means I'm Mexican and Norwegian. And
okay.
So the Hispanic in me, this is very thick hair. And so far it stayed together, but the Norwegian in me is taking the early gray. Well, not to say early, because I am at an age where you should be graying.
Okay.
Fighting it. So,
but it feels early to you. It's always early to us.
Yeah, because mature wise, I'm still between 18 and 23. So just because my body is 49 years old does not mean my maturity level is. And so that's who's fighting against those groups. And really that can, that L'Oreal spray can to keep myself blonde. I mean, I get my hair professionally done,
Sure.
but right now the grays are like very, very rebellious.
Have you noticed it's not just that they're gray, it's that they're angry. Like they like little Brillo pad, like
yes.
mine come up right around here and they're very mad. They're very, very like aggressive.
They gray, white, whatever kind of, they are angry that you are trying to fight against them. I mean, because they just stand at attention and no hairspray
there's
will
nothing
keep them down.
Yeah.
And the more you fight, and I've plucked them. I mean, I've gotten so mad that I'm like, okay, if you're not going to behave, out you go.
Yeah.
And they come back worse. So I would not.
Don't pluck them.
If I could say one really powerful thing through this whole thing, it's don't pluck your gray hairs, because they will come back in force and they'll bring friends next time.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for that advice. I am starting to get them, and I'm, noticing them, and I have been plucking them. So now I feel convicted to stop. So I appreciate your wisdom. Now this is a pretty terrible segue, Jen, but when we're talking about the aggressiveness of the gray hair, when we were talking off camera before, you were sharing with me that you used to be a very aggressive Christian. I want to hear more about the recovering legalist, Jen, please. Can you share more about like your whole like spiritual story and journey on that?
Jen's spiritual story. Yes. So I was raised in a Lutheran church, and God bless the Lutherans. And so I knew all the stories, I knew about the parting of the Red Sea. I knew about the loaves and fish. I knew about, the Samaritan woman and all the stories that you learn about in VBS and all in Sunday school and stuff. But I didn't know about the relationship with Jesus. So when I was 18, almost 19, I had a miscarriage. I was deeply searching for God. Like, I knew there was a God. I wanted a relationship with him beyond what my upbringing had taught me. And I knew that he was there. Right. I never doubted that my whole life. So I ended up going to a bakery and getting a bagel. I met a friend, and we were just walking around the strip mall, and I see this, what turned out to be a hyper Pentecostal church. And they were meeting that night. It was a Wednesday night meeting, which I had no clue Christians met on Wednesday nights. Sunday Lutherans, like that was it.
Yes.
And so I was like, I am going tonight. I called my friend. I'm like, hey, will you go with me? Because where two or more are gathered, you are more brave. And so, especially when you're 18, 19. Yes. And so she goes with me. I end up getting saved. I'm like on fire. They're tripping me out because they're speaking in tongues. But the pastor has some essential things that I was looking for as an 18 and 19-year-old. He was hot and he was funny. So I was like, yes,
clearly anointed.
Thank you for this church. I will be going here from now on. Unfortunately, that wasn't really good, but, and they veered off course, very shortly after, but, so I learned a lot, and my friend was going to a Calvary Chapel, and Calvary Chapel are very like verse by verse. So we were reading scripture and then all this like charismania. And so I quickly learned what not to do, and and that people were sinning out there. So I didn't care if I was in the grocery store. I'd be like, you shouldn't do that. Jesus said, blah, 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 blah. And the whole horrible hypocrisy of all of this was I was living with my boyfriend and fornicating myself all around with my boyfriend. Oh, no. And it took a little, can we say fornicating on a Christian?
Yeah.
But it took,
if it's in the Bible, we say
it took my friend to come to me in tears and talk about how she couldn't be my friend anymore because I was fornicating. And that was a sin in the Bible. And blah, blah. So her example of loving me, and I mean, I closed up shop and actually ended up marrying my husband, my boyfriend then, my husband now. So 20 years later. But I mean, the Lord convicted me and I had such freedom in that. I was like, so I took that, added the charisma and hellfire and brimstone and Bible, and I was just a zealot. Like my parents were like, please, Jen, I mean, just don't be such a Bible thumper. Imagine your parents saying that.
God, you don't hear that much.
And they're like, you are so annoying. Stop talking about Jesus.
So you were running around telling everybody how they were doing it wrong, basically?
Yeah, I was delivering truth, a lot of truth, and truth is truth, but without love, I'm going to tell you right now, it isn't very effective.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until probably my early 30s that I learned, oh, I'm supposed to love God with all my heart, mind, soul, and spirit, and love others as myself.
Yeah.
And then through discernment from the Holy Spirit, to if he calls me to do that, I'm supposed to do it in love.
Yeah.
And so when I began walking in that, delivering truth in love, that was an epiphany. But
that's great. And I love your willingness to share the story, for one, because we are all growing, you know, in a bunch of different ways. And I think a lot of times in the Christian community, we're a little bit afraid to tell the truth about our weaknesses and our failures and the ways that maybe we're getting it wrong, or we're, you know, misunderstanding what God was calling us to or wanted us to do. So thank you, one, for telling the truth and sharing that story. And thank you for being humble enough to grow. You know, like there are a lot, like one of the kind of signature tropes of legalism is thinking that you're always right. And not being willing to say, you know, maybe I've misunderstood though, you know, God's call and how I'm to deal with people in my life who are struggling with sin. So I'm just applauding that you were willing to listen to God and willing to listen to the people around you and learn like, oh, you know what? I'm not speaking the truth in love. And I have to say, this is timely, Jen, that you would talk about this too, because we're entering the holiday season. I have purposefully asked you to talk about humor and that kind of stuff, because I know a lot of folks who are really nervous about going to Thanksgiving dinner and spending Christmas with family. Like so many of us are really excited to get to do that this year, because last year, 2020, was such an ordeal, you know, with the pandemic. And here we are getting to be with family again in ways that we haven't been able to in a while. But at the same time, we are in what feels like the most divided, most argumentative, most chaotic, most polarized time and culture. And people are arguing left and right. And there are a lot of folks who are out there who they want to speak truth. They want to be bold for Jesus. But maybe are like how you used to be, where they're struggling with the idea of like, yes, but if it, like Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians, if I have not love, it's a clinging symbol. You know, if we're telling the truth on behalf of Jesus, but we're not doing it with the fruit of the Spirit, the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, the gentleness, the self-control, then I'm not really sure that we're serving God the way we think we are, the way we hope we are. So is this something that you still kind of struggle with?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in judging McPherson, I can be.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
I am in a situation, you know, it's like sometimes I can be, you know, a pit bull on a chain. Like I just want to tell them. I can see it in black and white what they should do, and you know, definitely struggling. I still struggle with, you know, wanting to deliver truth impatiently.
Okay.
not necessarily not in love. I think that I know the damage that that can cause now.
Yeah.
And, you know, definitely feeling like I can be a know-it-all. I think part of that is my personality. And now with Google, I kind of am a know-it-all.
Well, yeah, we all think we are, right?
Oh, really? Let me check that on Google.
Yes. And
So,
are you,
yeah, so
what Enneagram number are you, by the way?
I am a 7 with an 8 wing.
Ah, yes.
Which I don't know a lot about the Enneagram because, you know, I don't want to go to hell. So we talked about that before. But another thing that Christians are so like polarized.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's please die on a hill over a personality test, guys. Come on.
Yeah. So
okay.
I have taken the test, and it does. When I read about the 7 with an 8 wing, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
About my personality.
It does. That does seem to fit. That's why I was wondering. And, you know, there's so many great things about 7s and 8s. And I mean, just if we take the Enneagram out, about a personality that's willing to tell the truth, that's willing to be a pit bull, but for righteousness' sake. Right. And that also is willing to have fun, you know, and not take all of life so seriously. So I have some friends that are 7s and 8s. In fact, some of my very closest friends are 8s because I struggle with the opposite. So I am a 4. And actually, I think what I'm going to do, I haven't figured it all out yet, but I wanted to make a playlist, like a music playlist for the holidays. And so I was putting it together, and it's like called, I think I'm going to call it, I need a better title. Maybe you can help with this, but like Holy Shift Vibes. And it is the forest of the force, right? It is, we're going to have all the feelings. We are going to ride a roller coaster of emotions. We're going to listen to Johnny Swim, and then we're going to go over to NF, and we're going to have a lot of angst. And so you might be a really good pick me up after living in Fourville, the Valley of the Four. So one of the things that I struggle with, and I think this is why I'm drawn to people like you, like a couple of my other friends who are stronger, more joyous personalities, more direct personalities, is I tend to, for the truth and love, I struggle a little more with the truth. Now, I'm willing to tell you the truth about Jesus, but I sometimes can't tell you the truth about like my needs or my life, or if it isn't like scripture, if it isn't Jesus, then I'm not necessarily going to die on the hill, and I'm going to call that love. Okay. And the problem with that is that love without truth is enabling. And I like to call it grace. I like to say that I'm being gracious, and I always want to err on the side of grace, right? I always want to do that. But if I'm not willing to speak the truth in love, then it's not really love. It's not really love. And so I love that there are people like you out there who are telling the truth and are willing to stand up and be bold. And you are going to speak the truth of love, and always be humble enough to try to, oh, wait, was that love? You know, kind of lean a little more towards truth. And then I'm going to go around behind you and braid their hair and write them a poem and be like, but Jesus loves you. But all that is true, though, just so you know, what she said is true. So it's a good team.
Well, and it really is. And that's why the body of Christ is a beautiful thing, because, you know, I am a bit of a bull in a china shop. And when I become friends with somebody, I let them know that I'm not very sensitive. So I don't get my feelings hurt easily. But in the opposite of that, I could be hurting your feelings and not really realizing it. Gotcha. So I always say, if I'm stepping on your foot, I might not know it. I have really big feet. So just tap me on the
steel-toe boots.
Yeah. Hey, you're stepping on my foot.
Yeah. And
so I think the more that I know that sometimes my personality is too much. And so as I grew and as I matured into my 40s, I just welcomed God refining me more and more. And that means bringing people who aren't like me, who are very sensitive, who cry and who get their feelings hurt, you know, into my life that I could be like, oh, okay, not everybody's like me. And I think as we mature, we get a sense of that more and more, like, okay, not everybody thinks I'm funny. I haven't met anybody yet, but I know it's true.
There must be one person out there. Well, clearly they're wrong and they don't have the spiritual gift of discernment.
Thank you.
So
yeah, like I did, they had me do announcements at church. And I literally just ended up using it like, stand-up comedian would. I'm like, hey, good morning, DNC. And it was so funny, the reaction to that. So first of all, church announcements are all dumb. Like you print them in the bulletin, you have them on the slides behind you, but I think they're better coming from a live person. I have always thought that. But it is so goofy when you're like, all right, youth is having pajama party once again. And, women are having tea once again. Men's Bible study, nobody's attending, unless we barbecue something. So I just did announcements at church like I thought that they should be done, which is with a big dose of humor and very little facts. And it, I drove our media team crazy because it usually stretched out way too long. And I drove the youth pastor crazy because, here it was right after worship. So he wants everybody, just in this like,
oh no,
natural worship state. And then I come up, cracking jokes like I'm in some kind of a bar. So it wasn't long before they, stopped scheduling me. Like every church, it's like, let's not confront her. But what was funny was the reaction of the congregation. Men loved it. Men were writing jokes for me. And
that's great.
You know what? Next time you do this, you should say this. And they were heckling me from the audience. So it was but it was something you didn't expect at church. And that's what was brilliant for the time and the period that the Lord allowed me to do that. Was you had people come in and be like, oh, the announcements. And then they're like, oh, wait, that's funny.
They probably listened to him for the first time in years.
Well, and a guy said, hey, are you doing announcements next week? I'm thinking of bringing a friend.
Oh my gosh.
So I was getting so much positive feedback. And I know there were people out there that, were like, oh, okay, just do the announcement. But I mean, for some, they thought it was hilarious. So that was, I think that as Christians, we should stand out. I told you about the Misfit Christians page that a friend and I kind of started, and Misfit is such a great, the definition of it is just such a great thing, awkwardly standing out. And I think that I think that the world shouldn't feel comfortable necessarily around us, but Jesus in us should be attracting people to us, whether that's through humor or wisdom or, whatever God has gifted you with. I think that my mantra is, be salt and light, salt and light. Salt makes things taste better. It brings out the flavor. And so as a Christian, I want to bring out the flavor in other people in other situations. And I want to be that light that's continually pointing towards God and not myself. And so, that is the thing. I mean, I deal with all the stuff still. I think I'm more aware of it in my late 40s, almost 50, than I was before. But I thought, when I first got saved, I thought, by 35, I'll pretty much have that down. I won't be sinning. And then as you grow and mature, you realize how dirty you are. The closer you get to God's light, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know, I need to change this shirt. You realize that I'm never going to reach perfection
Yeah.
like I did when I was, before I was 20 and thinking in such a naive way.
Yeah.
But it's allowing God to refine you in whatever your gifting is.
I'm glad that you said that, because one of the things so I am a recovering striver. So I want a 100 on everything. And all of my value is rolled up in how good of a job I'm doing. Right. So I am very offended by the idea that I cannot get an A in Jesus, that I cannot get 100 on all of this. Yeah. It is very offensive to me. And when I became a Christian, which was late 20s, I was entirely sure that if I followed all the rules and did everything right, that I would have the Christian thing licked and I would be all the salt and all the light in the whole wide world. And that was my whole purpose. And I just had it basically all about me. And it was all dependent upon me. Yeah. And when I first began to realize that I was setting myself up for absolute, complete, total failure, I was so mad at myself. I was so mad at God. I would read the Sermon on the Mount and I would be like, no one can live up to that standard. And Jesus would be like, that's correct. That would be my point. And I'd be like, but why do you give us the standard if I can't get 100? And he's like, correct. That's the point. And now here I am building a ministry on this idea that Jesus has a way of doing things that is so opposite of ourselves, whether we're a legalist, whether we're the kumbaya poet, like whatever our natural bent is, it isn't the way of Christ. And so we call it the upside down kingdom. But really what Jesus did was show us how upside down we have who he is and what he's calling us to. And it has just been so humbling. So humbling. That's why I just did a whole stint on humility. So humbling to be like, I really am nothing apart from God. And that's good news. Only in this upside down kingdom is this idea of like, I am nothing apart from God. And he is everything. That's good news in the kingdom. But it's not good news in my flesh. It sounds like you struggled with a little bit of the same thing, that it wasn't good news to you that you couldn't check the boxes and get it right, or make other people check the boxes and get it right. That's even harder, I think. But this idea that this is an ongoing dependence on Christ, on the Holy Spirit, to be out in the world to try to reflect his goodness, not to showcase our own. Right. And it's a humbling place to live, but I am just now, and we're close to the same age. I think some of it comes with regular maturity. Some of it comes with emotional maturity and spiritual maturity. I am just now okay with that. Like being like, oh, I'm actually, like, I love that it's not about me. For one, it lets me off the hook for having to deliver, because I can't. In my own strength, I can't. But the other thing is, like, it just helps when we take that backseat and like get dethroned, by choice or by force. That's when you really start to see how big God is, how enough God is. And that's where the joy and the peace and, the kindness comes from. It's an overflow of who he is, not something that we muster up. So, as we're going into the holidays, as we are thinking about ways that we can be salt and light to people through the holidays and in the coming year, what would you offer anybody who's listening today as a way that they could do that?
World according to Jen, my humble opinion is that to have no expectations.
Okay.
If we go into these situations and we have no expectations, then we will not harbor disappointment. We're not expecting anything. So anything that happens is gonna, oh, that's interesting. It's either going to be interesting, good, but it's not going to be like, gosh, I I haven't gotten together with my family in so long. And so I was just thinking we're going to, go to this ski lodge in Vermont for a week, and we're going to have this fantastic time playing games and doing puzzles. And nobody's going to fight because we've been away from each other for so long.
It's going to be perfect.
But the thing is that, if we don't have expectations of others, then we don't get disappointed. And
Yeah.
it's just a matter of loving people where they're at.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the best ministries that we can do is love people where they're at.
Yeah.
And that, sometimes means that, they're not doing exactly what you wish that they would do. Maybe they're having too many drinks at Christmas dinner or whatever, and you're getting annoyed and irritated, whatever it might be. But for me, sometimes I will unplug for a second. Sometimes I just go into the restroom, take a couple deep breaths, realize this isn't about me. This is about reflecting God, and you need to do that.
Yeah.
And not worry about. And so I'm trying to be gentler in my older age.
Yeah.
Because I am physically big, I'm 5'9.5". I'm way past chubby, and I'm okay with it. This is who I am. I can't hide it. There's not enough Spanx to, but I'm okay with it. And so being who I am in that situation, but just praying for God, okay, Lord, I know this is going to be difficult. How do I love these people where they're at? And going in prayed up in that way has made a huge amount of difference over the years for me. If I'm in difficult situations, or, if I know, I'm going to be uncomfortable, or something's going to be, that's one of those moments that I hand it over to him, and okay, no expectations.
Yeah.
I'm just going to, focus on whoever I'm around and being there for them. And, I don't do it perfectly. Sometimes I flip over into my flesh and I'm like, oh, no, you didn't. I try to quickly bring that back. But it's, I think it's a skill that we grow and learn and mature in. I know for some people it comes very easy. For my personality, it doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
But over the years, I've definitely gotten gentler, and
that's great,
and tried to put away expectations, because I think those are a fun stealer, and they can be damaging.
Yeah.
And it's too hard to try to live up to your own expectations, let alone the expectations of others. So
yeah. And I think right now more than ever, people need connection. They need grace. It's been a hard year to be in ministry. It's been a hard year to be in the line of work that I'm in, because people are fearful.
Yeah.
And fear it looks a lot like anger. It looks a lot like a lot of things. Most of them very difficult to be around. And it's hard to be patient. It's hard to be gentle in response to someone who, isn't affording us that same kind of treatment. And yet we crack open the Bible and look at Jesus and the way that he interacted with the people who were, not just like not into him, but completely against him. And we see a sense of humility there and a sense of gentleness. Never shirked the truth. He never was afraid to tell the truth. But that gentle spirit, that humble spirit, that's what he modeled, and that's what he calls us to. So right. I'm so grateful. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that there are a lot of people who who are going to be struggling with that. And like I said, my struggle is a little bit different, but it's just the flip side of that. So I have so much to learn also from you from that end. So thank you for that. And then a question that I'm going to start asking everybody that visits with us here on the Holy Shift is, what is turning your life upside down right now?
So when we talked initially, I had said, anytime I have gotten comfortable. So I talk about, building a white picket fence, hanging the porch swing, and sitting on that porch swing, sipping coffee, tea, whatever you want. And just kind of watching life go by. I get to those kind of points in my life and I'm like, whoa, this is way too comfortable. Lord, tip this ship over. I know that I grow the most in new and different scenarios where I'm not quite comfortable. I'm not quite sure of stuff. I rely on God more.
Yeah.
In the pain, in the upheaval. And so I think we strive so hard for comfort and safety and peace and stuff like that. And I don't know that that is what God's called us to. And I feel like I know that we're in a spiritual battle. And so we're soldiers. So we should be uncomfortable in this world. And so recently, my husband and I sold our house of 18 years, and the market is crazy over here in the Bay Area, as I'm sure around the country it is. And we'd owned the house for quite a while. And in California, it's just insane what stuff is going for. And
I bet.
So we had started talking about selling. We started praying about it. I went on a work trip, prayed about it, talked to some people. And then I came home and I was like, okay, let's do it. That was May. We had the house sold by June. And for over what we asked and all of the bells and whistles that we wanted.
Wow.
And then we were like, okay, well,
now what?
We don't necessarily want to move out of the Bay Area yet.
Okay. Yeah.
But what we'd always wanted to do was we had always wanted to see if we could live in a travel trailer.
Okay.
And travel. That was the part of the thing that we're not doing yet.
Oh, okay.
So we did that and we purchased it, and then we had no place to put it because, little beknownst to us, many people in this area were doing that. Were selling their homes high and purchasing motorhomes or whatever to live in temporarily. And so in the area, these RV parks around us, they were like 80 deep on their waiting list.
Oh no.
And it scared us so bad. We're like, we just bought a fifth wheel. We didn't even have a truck to tow it. We're going to have to, we had paid somebody to tow it.
So you're about to live in a parking lot again, like when you were doing
exactly. I'm about to go to the Walmart and live in that parking lot. We were looking all over the place, and finally I came across this 55 and over park. So it's part mobile home, part RV park.
Okay.
And at first I didn't realize that it was 55 and over.
Okay.
But when I got the application, the lady said, I don't know if you knew this, but it's 55 and over.
And you're not quite 55. You're about to turn 50, right?
Yes. And my husband, so we like to say we're close to 55.
Okay.
And they know it. I mean, obviously they knew, and they, the management said, you're close enough.
We're going to make an exception.
That we're going to make an exception here. But they had one space.
Oh gosh.
And we got it. And so we have been living here. And the thing about it is completely turned our world upside down, because we had lived in this this neighborhood for so long. We lived on a
Okay.
court, so we knew all our court people, but we didn't know anybody else.
Okay.
And we now have trailer besties that we met. That is a couple that did the exact same thing as we did, sold their house, they're living in their trailer. And so, but the people around us are a lot older, most of them.
Okay.
And so it's just, we know that God has placed us here for a purpose, and that purpose is to be a blessing to those around us. So we're constantly, looking for ways to bless the people that live here. There's 66 spots here, and
Nice.
I've made it my goal and mission to know every person in each 66 spot, and all the 66 spots, their names, and to pray for them, and to be a blessing somehow. So that's what we're doing currently. I don't know when God's moving us out of here to someplace else, but so it's this shift. And it's so funny when I tell people, they're like, guys are always like, if we didn't have kids, I'll be doing that today. I would be doing that today. And women are like, oh no. There's not very many there's not very many women that have said, oh, that is so cool. Mm-hmm. But there's a whole culture out there that are living in they're with kids and dogs, and we have a dog, but multiple dogs, and they're traveling the United States, they're homeschooling their kids. I mean, it's fascinating. So since we've done this, I've watched so many YouTube videos about people who are doing this full time. And now I don't know what God has for us at this point, but we're just along for the ride. I call it our midlife adventure.
I love it.
And
it seems so like you to, make the best of it and form a community in it.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Because I don't have a yard now to just let my dog out.
Yeah.
I have to take her on walks 5 or 6 times a day. So I'm constantly meeting people, talking with people. She's got her doggy besties. And so we look for them, and, and so it's become this tiny, my friend calls it tiny town. I
love it.
This little community, and it's just brilliant. It could be a fantastic reality show, honestly, because there's so many characters that
I bet it could.
It's hilarious. Yeah,
I bet it could. And I need you narrating and leading us around Tiny Town, with all of the flavor that you bring to every story.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I'm like, because we've talked about even doing a little YouTube channel.
Do it,
because it's kind of fun, and obviously it wouldn't be anything mean, but just to get a kick out of some of the stuff that happens here. And then just the fact that when I first got married, my mom gave me this little plant stick that said bloom where you're planted.
Yeah.
And so that has just kind of been a mantra of ours, wherever we're at. And, we were in a wonderful house. I mean, we had gotten the house to perfection. I mean, we had remodeled, we had the big marble shower, which I do miss.
Yes.
But that's about it. Honestly, the full-size bath is about all I miss in living in this. We have adjusted. It's been so it's just been, I have my home office in the second bedroom. It's just been,
I love it.
Amazing. So
So I actually love campers. I love them. And I have a weird relationship with homes and campers. So I've moved around a bajillion. I'm in my 38th house. So it is nothing for me to pack it up and leave it. My husband had moved around quite a bit, but mostly lived kind of in one area growing up. So he's a little more rooted. than I am. And so it gets nuanced with me on houses. So I work in real estate. I've always loved houses and architecture. I've moved a lot of times as an adult. Every house has been an upgrade from the one before because I get in there and I like home decor like you do. So I fix it up nice, put some lipstick on it, make it look, presentable, put it on the market, make some money, move up. And I have always wanted to design and build my own house. And I finally was able to do so in this house that we're in now, which we've been in for almost 8 years, which is a record. But while we were building this house, we lived in a about 400 square foot trailer. It wasn't even a double wide. It was a single wide on somebody's land while we were building. And it was supposed to be for 4 months and it was for 10. And it had an outdoor shower, not an indoor shower. And this was all during the winter. And basically I could like fry an egg from my couch. Like everything was like boom, 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 all in a row. And I couldn't wait to get out of that thing and get in my pretty house that I was so excited for. And don't get me wrong, I love my house. I love my house. But every once in a while, my husband and I will look at each other and be like, do you kind of miss the trailer? And because it was so simple.
Yes.
It was so simple.
Yes.
Life was just easier and it was simple. And there is a part of me that has thought about selling this house and doing exactly what you're doing because the market, I'm in Austin, so the market's insane. Sell this house high and do what you're doing and float a little bit. Like I didn't call myself the Jesus gypsy for nothing. Like I tend to wander. I like an adventure. So I actually love what you're doing. And if you started a YouTube channel, I would watch it religiously. I'm just telling you right now. I would be like your first yes, you have 1 follower. I will like everything you put out there. I think it sounds really fun. And I can only imagine how upside down it might feel from doing that after you lived in the same house for 18 years. And I love that you landed in an active adult tiny town.
An active adult. Yes.
Yes. Active adult tiny town.
Yeah. Well, and you think about, I had never thought about it until we landed here.
Yeah.
How much COVID had affected the lives of people. A lot of the people are probably in their late 70s and 80s.
Okay.
In this park. And so the isolation of COVID and just the loneliness and stuff. And so that's kind of what we're praying about at this point, like how to help, not do it safely,
Yeah.
But be a blessing to them. So
yeah. Well, I love that, Jen. And I have no doubt that you are just a force, of light and goodness in that part. I just know it. I absolutely know it. I know that you are on Instagram. I know that you are light for me when I get on there and see you joking around. And also though, like telling the truth all in there too.
Yeah. If you want to just come see ridiculous content delivered by a big girl, hey,
I recommend it. I recommend it. It really is light. It's light for me, Jen, and I know it's going to be light for other people. That's why I wanted to have you on here. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for reminding us how we can use humor and laughter to love people well. I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing more of you out there in the Insta world.